Hey everyone, and welcome back to the latest video in our series, The Facts You Didn't Know. This is where we take a deep look at every Prince album, and we'd just like to say a massive shout out to all of you who have watched any of the videos in this series so far. Today we're going to talk about my favorite 21st century Prince album. The reason that it's my favorite is due to a combination of things. Not just the quality of the album, but my own experiences during the release of it, and in fact one in particular which I'll discuss. It's a funky electronic pop album with a lot of diversity musically. It had a huge campaign including music videos, alternative versions of songs, a golden ticket contest, a new protege, a legendary residency in Las Vegas with its own branded restaurant, and guess what? It became the first Prince album in many years to hit the #1 spot immediately on the Billboard album chart. The numbers in the title add up to Prince's favorite number, 7. Of course, we're talking about 3121. Before we start, please take a second to subscribe to our channel. And if you wouldn't mind, hit the bell icon for notifications. It costs nothing, and it really helps our channel keep going. Alright, let's do this thing. So the first thing to think about when thinking about the overall sound of 3121 compared to musicology is that for the whole musicology era, Prince was a happily married man. Whereas by the time we were in the midst of the 3121 era, he was not. And it's pretty clear that impacted his songwriting and his production choices, being as they were much more sexy, dance floor intended contemporary pop compared to the more organic tones of musicology. I personally rejoiced at the return of slinky synths and expertly programmed drum machines because it felt like Freaky Prince was back. We've got him singing about Lolitas, and Black Sweat was clearly intended to remind the likes of the Neptunes and Timbaland that their sound would not exist if it were not for the Minneapolis sound. Something they would definitely acknowledge themselves. Prince was finally recovered from his Raven to the Joy Fantastic hangover and ready to make a record that would rock the dance floors again, mixing modern influences with his synth-funk trappings to create absolute fire songs like my personal highlight of the album, the song Love. I felt this way since the first time I heard the album, and that's the experience I mentioned before. You see, I got to be one of the first people in the world to hear the album, and in actual fact ended up writing the world's first review. I got invited to the listening party held by Universal Records in London, in a swanky mood-lit bar with love symbols etched into the glass, and this happened a full 6 weeks before the album came out. I rapidly ran home and typed up my review online, not knowing that I was the first attendee to do so. And from that point, it was extremely surreal knowing that I actually wouldn't be able to hear these songs again for over another month from that point. A few people have asked over the years if Prince was actually there. And if he was, he didn't show his face publicly, but it is worth pointing out that he was in London at the time, as the listening party happened in the same few days as this fantastic performance at the Brit Awards where he reunited with Wendy, Lisa, and Sheila E. If he was hiding in the shadows and watching for our reactions, he would have seen a ridiculous grin on my face the entire time. Prince's legendary 3121 parties in LA that happened during this era would go down in history. And it's pretty apparent that that's what he actually intended to do when he started conceptualizing this album. The stylings and the lyrics all point towards a sexy, funky party, with the title track talking about slipping on Japanese robes and sandals to drink champagne from a glass with chocolate handles. It's quite amusing to think that he actually wrote that song on a cold winter's day in Minneapolis with returning NPG members Michael Bland and Sonny T, in a marathon session that apparently yielded 12 new songs, including ones that would come out in the years following 3121 on subsequent albums, songs like Guitar, Wall of Berlin, and Colonized Mind. It's thought that the writing of the song happened during the same week that Prince had just found and put in an offer to rent what would become the 3121 house, located at 3121 Antelo Road in LA, although he hadn't quite moved in yet. And it's interesting to note that he rented it from retired Playboy model Barbie Benton. A house belonging to a former Playboy model is certainly in keeping with the themes of the album. The house is a 7-bedroom, 11.5 bathroom just off of Mulholland Drive in Bel Air and currently valued at a huge $14 million. So if anyone watching this has 14 million to spare, you know what to do. While this was the house that inspired the title track of the album, and numerous parties were held there, it's worth pointing out that this is not the same house that Prince infamously rented from NBA player Carlos Boozer and decked out completely in purple. 3121 Antello Road was rented by Prince from late 2004 to late 2005. The house he rented from Carlos Boozer was 1235 Sierra Alta Way, which he rented from late 2005 until May 2006. Since 3121 themed parties, including the album release party, happened at the Sierra Alta Way house, many consider this house to be the 3121 house, but it was not the house that was actually numbered 3121. Move over Will Smith, at this time there was a new Prince of Bel-Air, but from Minneapolis, not West Philadelphia. Prince had also started revamping the NPG at this time as well, and his new bass player and drummer, Joshua Dunham and Cora Coleman Dunham, who at the time were married, made their first appearances on Ti Amo Corazon, the first single from the album, and Get on the Boat, the final track on the album. What's interesting about these two songs, as well as an unreleased song which was removed at the last minute named Streets of Panama, is that they appear to be consistent with each other with a slightly more organic sound, plus Latin influences, plus the return of Claire Fisher's string arrangements on two of those songs. But they are slightly less consistent with the more synth-driven songs like Lolita, Black Sweat, Love, and Incense and Candles. It's quite possible that Prince could have chosen to go in a couple of different directions here when making the album, either with the more organic Latin-influenced sound that would have perhaps felt like the natural successor to Musicology, or to go full tilt with the contemporary pop R&B of many of the other songs. But in this instance, he seemed to pick what he felt were the strongest songs of both styles, and because the songs on this album are so great, he pulled it off. What I do remember is that after hearing Ti Amo Corazon as the first single, I certainly was caught by surprise when Black Sweat became the second. With the incredible guitar work on the rock song Fury ending up as the third single, what you end up in terms of the single releases is Prince, much like he had done before on albums like Sign of the Times, proving again to the world that he was a master of many different styles. Although when it comes to Fury, it does have to be said. In my opinion, the live workout he did on Saturday Night Live is the ultimate version. Now, we mentioned the unreleased Streets of Panama song, but there's one more song that did originally appear on the album and got cut, and that's The Morning After, which would later appear on the Lotus Flower album a few years later. With regards to that idea of there potentially having been two possible different directions to the album, it's worth pointing out that we do know The Morning After and Streets of Panama both appeared in the unreleased 3121 movie, which was itself shot primarily in Panama. We discussed this in part in our Uncovering Prince interview with Afshin Shahidi, who worked on the film, and it seems like even a lot of the people involved with the film didn't really understand what it was about, with more than one person suggesting that it was probably for the best that the film did not come out. The existence of this film, as was heavily speculated at the time before we knew much about it, was indeed why the CD of 3121 had the words 3121 The Music printed on it. One more thing we know about the 3121 movie is that it starred Panamanian model Liza Hernandez, aka Liza Lena. She's also one of the female voices you hear on Lolita, and Prince actually gave her a song called Panamaniac, which she released as a promotional single to try and kickstart her own music career. This collaborative partnership didn't last long though, and by the time the album was actually out, we didn't see anything else from Liza, with the focus having shifted entirely to Tamar. That was likely for the best, as Tamar was and is an incredible singer, and she's also someone else we have interviewed for this channel. Her vocal performances across the 3121 album are all incredible, and Purple fans were eagerly awaiting the release of her debut album, which was originally named Beautiful, Loved and Blessed, later renamed Milk and Honey, and for which a small promotional leaflet actually appeared inside the original pressings of the 3121 album. Unfortunately, despite having given them a hit album, the relationship between Prince and Universal Records quickly fractured, and they pulled the plug on Tamar's album release at the last minute. So last minute, in fact, that the album had already hit record stores in Japan. So if you're after an official copy of Tamar's album, that Japanese release is the only one that exists. One fun fact about two of the more electronic songs on the album, Black Sweat and Love, is that both also exist in very minimal acoustic formats. Black Sweat had actually been performed in an acoustic version several times on the Musicology tour, meaning we were familiar with the song before the official release. And later on the 3121.com website, an acoustic mix of the song Love was streamed. Much like the Musicology tour, promotion was very heavy for the entire 3121 project. There were high-profile appearances, like the aforementioned Brit Awards and SNL performances. There was a very memorable performance on Good Morning America. The music videos clearly had decent budgets. There was the excitement of the Golden Ticket contest, where fans could win all expenses-paid trips to see Prince perform in his house. There was the 3121 perfume release. And of course, we cannot forget the Las Vegas residency at the Rio Hotel. In fact, before we get to that, the 3121 era is notable for having two pretty different tours. You see, Prince was so committed to supporting Tamar as a protege that from January to March 2006, he actually did something he'd never done before, and did a tour where his role was musical band leader and primarily guitarist with Tamar on lead vocals. Basically, the Tamar tour featuring Prince and the NPG as the musicians, with the setlist being primarily comprised of the songs from the Tamar album, and a few of Prince's own songs here and there. In this tour, you might say Prince was the Ike to Tamar's Tina, except, without the bad stuff. Following this, from November 2006 to April 2007, was when the 3121 residency at the Rio happened. Now, this was a real cornucopia of music that set the city of Las Vegas on fire. Not only did Prince perform some 50-odd shows here, he also found time to sneak in over 20 aftershows in the 3121 Jazz Cuisine restaurant. And these Rio shows saw all kinds of celebrities show up, many joining Prince on stage, such as Cat Williams, Maceo Parker, Esperanza Spalding, Sheila E., Candy Dulfer, and will.i.am. And yes, it was indeed at one of these shows where Michael Jackson showed up to watch the performance, leading to the story about Prince going up to him and letting a funky bass solo rip right there in front of him. However, it's the 24th of March 2007 AM aftershow at the Jazz Cuisine restaurant that is almost certainly a very vivid memory for any fans that managed to attend. Prince and the NPG stretched 4 songs out for almost an hour of hardcore funk jamming, but it's the choices of the songs and the guests that made it special. You see, 2 of the songs were the Sly and the Family Stone classics Everyday People and Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself Again, made even more special by the fact that Larry Graham was sitting in with the band to lock in those iconic bass grooves. But if that wasn't enough, after those Sly Stone songs, Prince and the NPG launched into Another Lover Hole in Your Head from Parade, and who should appear on stage with him but the Revolution's twin sisters, Wendy and Susanna Melvoin, to reprise their performance from that 1986 classic. Now that must have been an absolutely incredible night. If I had been there, I'm sure I'd still be talking about it to this day. All in all, the 3121 era was an absolutely incredible time to be a Prince fan. If Musicology was, in the minds of the general public, some kind of mainstream comeback for him, then 3121 took that to the next level. We had pop star Prince back, rock star Prince back, with all kinds of promotion, not just the regular music business kind of promotion, but more out there things like the 3121 perfume and incense ranges too. Prince was on top of the charts, performing incredible shows, and releasing incredible music backed by the might of a major label, and at that time, all seemed right in the purple world. What are your favorite memories of the 3121 era? There was so much that happened in this era that we couldn't cover it in just one video, so I'm looking forward to reading your comments and memories on it. What are your favorite songs on the album? Did you attend the Vegas residency? And finally, do you think the estate should release the 3121 movie? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell for notifications, and we'll see you next time for more facts. And once again, thank you for watching. Peace and be wild.
Hi, I'm Elisa Fiorillo, and you're watching The Violet Reality on YouTube. All things Prince.